Hi, this is Jason Brown with Boone County 4-H coming to you. Just do a quick tutorial on how to produce the mini crankies that we've done. If you're someone watching because you have received a kit from us for the mini crankies, we're going to talk about how to do your little storyline on the scroll there, how to produce that, some tips and pointers for that part, but also how to put it together at the very end. And so that's what we're going to primarily focus on today. I will say that I will, in the notes at the bottom, I'm going to link in there the video I made just demonstrating my sort of story there. They are special that you see in the completed box there on the screen. So I'll link that at the bottom so you can open that up and you can watch that real quick to see how the cranky works. Also, I'm going to link some websites down at the bottom, the Crankie Factory, and I'm going to link a couple of sites there and some videos you can watch to kind of get some ideas of what students such as yourself have done in the past to produce some really nice crankies. So let's get started. In your cranky kit, you will receive a cranky box, exactly like the one you see in front of you. Your box might be a small one like this one, it may be a larger box, but that's what you have there. And it should be complete with handles. As you can see, it'll have the removable handles in them, the notches at the bottom. You also have your scroll, or your storyline should be in there, and obviously it's going to be based on the size of the box you have. And so that's going to come in your kit. As far as supplies to actually do your scroll and some things like that. If you'd done the class in the office with us, I would have had plenty of markers, supplies, things like that for you to use, but because you're kind of doing them at home and supplies are kind of limited, we won't be able to really show you, or I'm sorry, provide for you the kind of supplies that you would need in the sense of the artistic thing. So, you know, you might have to visit a Walmart or a Hobby Lobby or a place like that to pick up colored pencils or art pencils or, you know, art erasers or paints, construction paper, glues, things like that. I'm going to leave you to decide what it is that you want, because a part of doing this is going to be you sort of thinking through, what do I want to do? What do I want it to look like? What do I want my artistic sort of supplies to be that I want to use? Everybody's different. I'm going to leave that part open to you and what your parents want to do as far as providing those for you, since you'll be at home with them. First thing you're going to do is you're just going to tape down your scroll. So you want to make sure that the scroll, when you tape it down, the little mark right there is facing up. What I've done simply is that I have allowed there some space on each end, because that's the part that will roll up and over the rod, and you want to have a little bit of space there at the end. You don't want your storyline to start that far over, because if it does, then it's in a sense will cut it off, or you won't be able to see it, or it won't look as neat. So you're just going to tape it on that one end there, and you're simply going to run your paper out to the other side. Your scroll paper is 4 foot long, so you're just going to run it out, and you want to keep it tight. You don't want there to be any waves in it or anything like that. You want to pull it out tight, make sure it's straight, and just tape that other end there. Okay, the next thing you need to do is come up with a storyline. Okay, you're going to want to make sure your storyline runs from left to right, because that's traditionally how we view things and how sort of how they scroll, how we read books, things like that. So you're going to want to work it left to right. Okay, and it's going to be hard to come up with a storyline. It's going to be hard to think of things that you want to do. That's probably one of the harder parts. It took me a couple of days to think through the storyline I wanted. Good thing about you doing it at home is you're not in the classroom and you don't feel put on the spot, so you'll have a few minutes to kind of sit and think and let really good ideas sort of come to mind, and so you'll be able to do that. But once you have a storyline, it can be anything. It can be a story, a fairy tale story, a folk story, or something you like, maybe a story you saw on the internet that you can replicate in a way. And in each panel, the one thing I want you to understand and know is that because the Crankies and the presentation of the Crankies is in a large way you telling a story verbally, you don't need to have every bit of that story in on your scroll as you look at it. Matter of fact, if you go back and watch my video that I did for They Are Special, the Cranky I did, you notice that I have the main ideas in each frame, but then I'll sit there and talk about what that represents and sort of add some verbal sort of presentation to the part. So that's really important for you to understand, that if you have, say, 5 frames on here, that you understand that those are there with the main points, but they're not meant to tell every specific part. They're just there to prompt, to give them a visual, because you're going to be verbally telling the story as you go. And so once you kind of figure out what story you want, I would even take scrap paper and do a storyboarding, which means that you're going to write down and sort of block out before you use your paper sort of what you want your story to be. Maybe some real light sketch drawings on that scrap paper of what you'd like in certain areas, and kind of just start breaking that down and working on that way. And so that would be sort of the first thing that I would work on and recommend doing. Scrap paper, storyboard, kind of get an idea of what you want the scroll to look like, some of the main pictures and points you're going to put in there as you go. Okay, so in this picture you're looking at right now is a picture of my story on the scroll as I've laid it out. And you can kind of see that each frame sort of talks a little bit about the thing I'm trying to accomplish. And again, go back and watch the YouTube video I made and you'll see the full story. Then you can come back to this picture and look and say, okay, I can see how he kind of broke it down by frame, laid it all out. And once you've sort of figured that out, what you're going to be able to do is just take, as you see in this picture, the T-square and the pencil, and just sort of measure out the frames and mark them. Make sure, though, that any pencil marks you make are very light. When I say very light, I mean as light as you can make them. Oftentimes I have students, what they'll do is they'll go through and they'll make those marks really, really dark. And, you know, they're really hard to erase, even with a good art eraser that's going to pull most any kind of mark up. It's going to be really difficult to remove that. And you don't want those frame lines in when you're done with your product. You're going to want to erase those out and make sure that those are gone. Also in the area of like, if you want to do some sketching on your scroll here as you go to kind of get an idea of where you want things, or if maybe you're going to use a pencil to draw the figures or the things you're producing, make them extra light. Because when you lay down a lot of that pencil, again, it's just really hard to pull it up. It gets smeared and blurred easy. And it really, even if you decide to paint over it or marker over it, it may show through some. So any pencil marks you make, you need to make them extremely light as you make those marks. Okay, I wanted to take a second and talk about what I did for mine as far as the art tools that I used. Essentially what I did is I had bought stamps, and these would have been stamps you could have used in class if you'd have come. But I found it easier to come up with stamps and then stamp the animals down instead of drawing them. And then what I did was I used watercolor pencils to color in the little areas there. And then I just took water and a fine paintbrush there and just went back over those colored spots to kind of cause that that watercolor paint to spread around a little bit. And so that's what I did when I went through and made mine. And so you can do that. Again, you can pencil draw things, or maybe you want to go and try to purchase some maybe go and purchase some construction paper, some things like that. But as you can tell, I went through and basically just did stamping and then coloring with the watercolor pencils and then just painting that in. I found that to be really simple and turned out real nice in my opinion as far as looking at it. The main thing I cannot stress enough with this, and again, took me a while to get this done because I wanted it to look really, really nice. And so be patient, take your time. I have students in class all the time who get impatient, or maybe they feel under the gun to get it done quicker in one day, and you don't have to do that. Sometimes stories and crankies and things like this, they take a long time to accomplish, and you should invest that time to make it really unique and special. Because if you get impatient, or if you get rushed, or you get bored, or whatever happens, and you just start slapping things down, you're not going to produce the kind of story and product that you want. Okay, so at this point, you have a wonderful cranky made, and you're ready to roll it on and get it set. So you're going to need a little bit of masking tape or something like that. Now, I use duct tape on mine because I just couldn't get it to hold for some reason, and I finally used duct tape knowing that mine is never going to come off. But if you intend maybe to change your story out in the future or do something different with it, don't use duct tape, because obviously it's going to be a little bit harder for it to pull and come off. But basically what you're going to do, and again, you're going to start on the left side, you're going to put your, the front of your message or your story, obviously. You're going to run this one first rod through, and you're going to tape it across, and you're just going to start winding it. Now, you want to make sure as much as possible you're even on both sides. Might not be perfect, and as you wind it on, you want to hold a lot of tension there on that as you roll that on. Okay, and I'm going to go a little faster probably than I should, but this one's pretty well set. You need to go slow and make sure it rolls on as tight as it can. One of the reasons you want to roll it on as tight as you can is that it's obviously been laid out. It doesn't have any form, and if you roll it on really tight this first time, you can really get it to sort of start to form, and the next time you go to unscroll it or run it, it's not going to be loose, okay? And so I want to make sure it's nice and tight. Once you get it rolled all the way on there, obviously, as you can see, we've just taped the other end on, and make sure that it's tight. Sure. Once it's set like that for maybe a day, it'll be plenty tight, and you can run it all the way back to the very beginning and get it set up to display or whatever you want to do with that. Okay? Pretty simple process, not too difficult to do. One thing I'll say here at the very end is we want you to be ready to enter your projects into the, again, it's not going to be the Boone County Fairs. Many of you have heard we're not doing Cloverville at the fairgrounds, but we are doing some things at the Enrichment Center for the ability, like you've done every year, is to come enter your entries that you've done over the summer into what would have been the fair, but it's going to be at the Enrichment Center. We will judge them. We'll look at them. Ribbons will be awarded like we've done in the past. And so keep your eyes out for that. You will be notified with additional information for that, and we would really love for you to be able to be a part of that and come out and see us. If you have any questions, just call me, 859-586-6101. Would be more than happy to talk to you about your cranky. If maybe you're having some issues or you need to chat, we could do a Facebook Live or a Zoom or whatever you might be accustomed to. I typically can make that happen, and we can chat, and maybe I could give some instruction to for your cranky, even though we're a bit separated. Hope everybody has a great day.